Hello, I am Wim de Meijer, Managing Director of ETIS, and on behalf of ETIS, a warm welcome to all of you. People are still connecting, but we have over 300 registrations for today's third virtual gathering with people from 40 different telecom operators and many suppliers. And today we want to discuss how we can rethink our position as telcos and drive a better life for all at a lower cost to the planet. Let's have a look at the agenda. My slides want to move. Yeah. Paul Slot, who is ETIS chairman, will introduce the session. Then I will comment on the position paper we have launched in September. Tom Krueger will give the results of the benchmark we did on the digital transformation status of the telcos who are partner to ETIS. Martin Greene will highlight what he thinks the role can be in other verticals for telecom players and how we should go about that. We're also happy that we have Marco Holsworth from Deutsche Telekom to give us the status on what happened with the floods and how this impacted disaster recovery and how it can also impact future contingency planning. We will complete the session with a panel discussion at the end. Just to get the best experience from the webinar, please click at the right top of your screen in the layout button to stack. We also would like this session to be as interactive as possible. So please ask your questions in the chat channel. We may take questions during the presentation, but we will definitely at the end of the webinar also come back to all your questions. So we want this to be interactive, so please shoot. The slides will also be shared with all of you, so no need to take screenshots or pictures while attending. You can just focus on what is being presented. So time to start the session. I would like to introduce Paul Slot, who is the ETIS chairman and who is Executive Vice President for Network, Mobile and IT Infrastructure at KPN. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Wim. Let me just bring up one or two sheets. There we go. Yeah, Wim, thank you for the introduction, and greetings and a good morning from Rotterdam. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be here. Indeed, again behind the camera. Honor to be able to open our virtual gathering. It's the second one this year. It's the third time we postponed our Rome event because we were aiming at meeting live. At least that's what we thought about half a year ago, but it's not happening yet. Well, Rome has been there for ages, for millennia. Rome won't go away. But at the same time, it seems like we found a good way of dealing with this new way of working, remote virtual gatherings. It works pretty well. As Wim said, we have about even more than 300 people who registered for this event. And I think that's great. Probably an, how you call it, a record for our gathering in our 30 years existence. Let's see how many people at the end will join eventually. And it's an honor to be part of this event together with Martin Greene, Marco Holsworth, Thomas Krueger, and of course Wim de Meijer. It's been a special year, but if you look at it purely from an ETIS perspective, it's also been a good year because it has been great to see so many people participating in our events. Our sessions last year have been joined by a lot of people. We've organized 81 different events, attended by more than 2,000 people, 20% more than in 2020. Representatives from more than 25 different operators. We've also been able to welcome a new member, Searset. Not sure whether you're at the event today, but wishing you a warm welcome and great that you're joining. We've also initiated new work groups, enterprise architecture, television content, and disaster recovery. So you see, we are in a continuous cycle to learn from each other, but also to explore new areas. And there's so much going on these days. Half a year ago, we spoke about climate change, and we addressed our responsibility for a better world. And now at least half a year ago, we were thinking we would be by now in the new normal. And during COVID times, we were all discussing the possible new normal and all the lessons learned. But when I look in my own country, in the Netherlands, today what's happening, I do see that traffic jams are back at the level of pre-corona. CO2 emissions are back to the old levels. And supply chains are still long and connected to to the end of the world, you would almost say. And it seems that COVID hasn't gone at all. You all see the news, what's happening in the various countries. And actually, it looks like it's worsening again. And I love working with technology. I love working with people. That's what gives me energy. That's also why I work in the telco. I love technology because it can create impact. It creates opportunities. But we also have to recognize that these opportunities also create new challenges. And I had to think about a story a long time ago, a story I read in one of the newspapers, but it's about something that happened more than 100 years ago. It's a story about, and forgive me the word, horse shit. There's a better word for it. It was a crisis called the Great Horse Manure Crisis. It's something that happened in New York, it happened in London, it happened in all the major cities. Because the biggest problems more than 100 years ago in these big cities was the horse manure. All the horses created this problem because we used the horses for the traffic. And they called this the Great Horse Manure Crisis. And that name refers to a supposed publication in the New York Times in 1894. And that said, in 50 years, every street in London will be buried under 9 feet of manure. Now, we all know that that didn't happen because there was a new technology, and that new technology, they were the cars. So the cars, by accident almost, created the solution for this horseshit crisis. Can you imagine? Horseshit. But cars, yeah, some people complained about the cars. They complained about it, however, because they made no noise. They made less noise than the horses. So they saw it as dangerous. So a new problem was created. And that's what you see every time. We create solutions, but the solutions also create new challenges. Now, I think you all know that living in the Netherlands means you live in the lowlands. And in the Netherlands, we have a long history of fighting the water. And we have something called the Deltawerken. And that was initiated after disaster floods back in 1953. A lot of people died back then because of the floods in the south of the Netherlands. And that was a sort of trigger for us that we had to build a better defense against the water. We initiated something called the Deltawerken. We did build dikes, embankments, dams, a very complex system to keep out the water, safeguarding our lowlands. We spent millions on it, and now we're sort of safe. Not for everything, as we'll see later on in the story of our colleague from Germany, but we're a lot safer than what we were back then. It costed us billions, but it also created a new industry for us in the Netherlands. And as the Netherlands, we are known now for our water management systems. And actually, it has become a great export product. So a big part of our, call it economy, lives from the export of our technology in this area. So we had a disaster, we created a solution, but it also created a new opportunity for us. So solving a problem creates new and unforeseen opportunities. That's the key of my message. And we humans have always been able to deal with the problems we have been faced with. Most of the times, the problems were a result of our own behavior. When we started to live in condensed cities in the Middle Ages, new sicknesses occurred. Medicine and different social behavior created the solutions to those diseases. And that's what we have seen time after time. And that's also what we see now, of course, with COVID. In our previous virtual event, earlier this year, I used this sheet where we spoke about climate change and our responsibility and the fact that it's really time to act. And who could have imagined that during summer, rain would cause severe damage in Belgium, in the Netherlands, and especially in Germany? Villages would be wiped out, would be wiped away, and most sadly, a lot of people died because of these floods. And today we will talk about how we are prepared for these kind of events, how we as telcos can be prepared. And I think you will recognize that as telcos, we are good in firefighting, and our incident response processes are very mature. We know how to act in crisis. As society today, we are facing a different crisis. Energy prices are soaring. We have to adapt our behavior in order to meet the Paris objectives for the climate. And what about the Sustainable Development Goals? We are the enablers of digitalization, but did we also think about how our technology can not only solve today's challenges, but not also create problems of the future? And that's the key question we have to ask ourselves. When you get to that question, you have to think about, we're building more and more data centers. We are densifying our mobile networks for good reasons, because we're digitalizing society with great advantages. But it's our duty to do that in such a way that we're not creating tomorrow's problems. And that's where the real paradigm shift will happen, will have to happen. Thank you. Wish you a great conference. Wim, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for the inspiring vision. We all know that KPN is a leader of the pack related to energy transition, and I would like to continue on this note. Because based on all the discussions we had in our working groups during the COVID crisis, sorry, there's something with the slides, but I will just go to the right one. Based on discussions we had in our working groups, we do believe that as a telco, we can reposition ourselves and we can help to drive a better life for all at a lower cost to the planet. After 180 webinars, we know that the time, as Paul has said, to act is now. The way we live and work will never be like pre-COVID. COVID has accelerated the digital transformation, big time, we can say. Sustainability is a strategic must-do. As already mentioned, we have a picture of what happened in Belgium, but the same thing happened in Holland and even worse in Germany. What happened during summer. And we as telcos do have the assets, and we can become a key player in changing the way we live and work in a sustainable way. In order to realize this vision, we have identified 10 drivers, which I want to guide you through. The first one, not surprisingly, is that we can help to limit climate change by embracing new technologies which have a higher energy efficiency, like fiber or 5G, by using artificial intelligence in order to reduce energy consumption, by integrating circularity into all of our decisions, and by concluding strategic partnerships. As already mentioned, KPN is a leader of the pack, I would say, and we were very happy that KPN presented in our previous virtual gathering their smart energy system use case, where they really show that with the usage of 5G networks, Internet of Things technology, and many other new concepts, we can indeed make sure that we do not waste renewable energy coming, for instance, from solar panels or windmills. The second one, not surprisingly neither, is we should help to digitally transform the economy. We do have the assets to enter new verticals. COVID has shown that we are the backbone of the digital economy. And again, fiber networks, 5G networks, also cloud and edge computing, and artificial intelligence are key technologies which we are experience with, which experience we can also put to usage in the digital transformation of other verticals. And we will come back to that during this session. The verticals were already discussed in a webinar we had together with Swisscom, where they presented their 5G vision. And we asked the audience which are the most likely where a telco can play an important role. The top 4 coming out of that survey was manufacturing, smart cities, transport, and e-health. We will definitely discuss this further during this webinar and to see whether our panel has the same opinion. Also, the role a telco can play. We all know from previous gatherings, even the physical ones already years ago, that no telco wants to become a sole connectivity provider, a dumb bit pipe or a smart bit pipe at best. And the good news was also that when we had a survey during a webinar we did together with Ericsson, that the audience also do things that we can play a role as service enabler by offering service platform businesses in these verticals, going all the way in the value chain and really offering end-to-end solutions and becoming a service creator was considered more difficult. We should push the hybrid way of working. In fact, all of the homes are becoming small offices. And we have discussions with our telecom partners, the operators primarily, who are at this time discussing how many days their employees will work in the office and how many days they will work at home or even abroad. The digital nomad concept is being tested. And it's clear that one size does not fit all. There is a dependency on the type of job, on the type of activity you're doing, whether you need to concentrate, which is easier at home than in a landscape office, but also on the personality of the employee. Some people get energy in a group, others want to work on their own. So the jury is still out, and as Paul has said, there is a lot of experimentation going on in this domain. We should push a blended way of living. Some futurists say that we are entering a new phase in the evolution of mankind. We are at the moment known as the Homo sapiens with an H, and some futurists say that we can omit the H in the future, and that the online world will meet the offline world all the time. And also vice versa, the offline world will meet the online world all the time. So there will be a blurred mix of the virtual and the physical world in the future. Also, our partners are looking at the opportunities which this can bring. We have a lot of examples already in place with commercial services in banking, in streaming platforms, in health solutions, in video conferencing, logistics, automotive, and many other domains. In order to cope with the traffic resulting from this trend, the Homo sapiens, we need to invest in infrastructure because traffic will continue to grow exponentially. And we already see that the number of fiber connections versus the other technologies in the broadband portfolio, the fixed broadband portfolio of operators, is already very high related to the fiber connections in the Nordic countries, in Spain, in Portugal, but also the countries which are at the lower side of this graph have now tremendous capex investment programs in order to have a very high fiber coverage at the end of this decade. Same story for 5G. We have already 25 commercial services or countries with commercial services related to 5G. Unfortunately, sometimes spectrum licensing is a showstopper and can slow down the rollout. So we hope that that problem will be solved in the near future, so that also the rollout of 5G can reach the levels we see in, for instance, Asia. We should protect privacy. We all know the guy on the slide, Max Schrems, whose actions really led to the invalidation of the privacy shield last year, which really shows the need for safe and trusted transfer of personal data. Since 2 weeks, we also know the lady on the slide, Frances Haugen, who has clearly, I would say, given the message that companies like Facebook may be prioritizing growth over customer data protection. We therefore welcome and also discuss in our working groups European initiatives like GaiaX and the International Data Space Association initiatives. We do not believe that making the customer the product is a good business strategy for telecom players, and that it's on the contrary detrimental to the trust telcos still have compared to hyperscalers who had scandals like the Cambridge Analytica one. We should safeguard security. Unfortunately, also the hackers had a lot of free time during the COVID crisis, and we saw a rise of cyber threats for both consumers and business customers since the start of the pandemic. Cases of flu bots have spread all around the world. Many users are even unaware that they are spreading this scam. Also, technologies like 5G and its adoption, also in far-reaching new ecosystems like we will discuss today, will put new demands to the security capabilities and solutions we will have to offer towards our customers. This month is Cybersecurity Month, so please take advantage of this to also create awareness related to the need for cybersecurity in your companies and for your customers. We should focus on benefits and not on technology. We should focus on benefits our services bring, the lower climate impact we already mentioned of fiber and 5G versus other technologies, how we can make people's life easier, how we can support their health. We should not focus on pure technological arguments. We clearly see anti-5G movements are on the rise. There have been many arson attacks in some countries in the last 2 years. And the narrative of these conspiracy thinkers, although the narrative is false and doesn't have any scientific basis, is also always based on the emotion and the impact the technology can have on others, on the community, and even on our democracy. So we should really, therefore, focus on the human aspect of what we're doing. And we do believe that our vision to drive a better life for all at a lower cost to the planet could be helpful in doing this. We should embrace diversity and leave no one behind. As a matter of fact, in order to keep our customers loyal, but also to keep our employees engaged, we need to have the right purpose and articulate this purpose. Our companies need to contribute to society and its many challenges, whether it's racism, climate change, social inclusion, or gender equality. Our last our last driver is also that we should strengthen the contingency and long-term planning. The COVID crisis has been a hard wake-up call, as also has been the floods, the forest fires we had during summertime. So therefore, also our disaster recovery plans need to be in place. And we are very happy that Marco will focus on this and show how DT is thinking about this. This brings me to the end of the 10 drivers and our vision. We will share the underlying position paper also with all of you and all the people who registered for the virtual gathering. And we will also send you a copy of the slides. So I think this is a good moment to move to our next speaker, who is Tom Krueger, who is partner and associate director at Boston Consulting Group, and who will give the highlights of the benchmark we did with our telecom operator partners on the status of the digital transformation at their side. Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Wim, for the kind introduction, and also thanks a lot for the time and the opportunity to present the results of this year's benchmark. And perhaps just for those who are not that familiar with our yearly annual benchmarking exercise, so we conduct this benchmark every year for more than a decade now, with a focus on 3 areas. On the one hand, we look at the market environment to understand better what's driving the market of the telco operators. We look into IT costs and specifically also investments. And then we have changing deep dives for each of the years, which depend on your interest. You are the ETIS members driving the content and the results here, because this is your survey. And I just would like to, let's say, reflect and bring back the results to you today. If we look at IT cost, we haven't seen much of a change. Last year, we saw an uplift due to digital transformations. This is nearly stable, so that I wouldn't want to dig deeper into that kind of details. But let's perhaps have a quick look at the market environment first, because last year was an important, challenging year for all of the industries. And what we usually do in our benchmark, we on the one hand show the change in revenues over time, but also the change in EBITDA. And on the left-hand side, you can see the market environment from the pre-COVID year, 2019, in our benchmark. On the right-hand side, you can see the recent version of this plot, which is surprisingly similar. So telcos surprisingly or comparatively performed well in the challenge of the COVID pandemic. You can see a light shift to the left and to the bottom, which is expected. But on average, the change in revenue is quite similar to previous years. We can still find a quarter of the ETIS members on the upper right corner, which is improving EBITDA margin, which is improving revenue, so that we have, let's say, a surprisingly well set up picture here. And if we compare to other industry, if we take the worst, let's say airlines, hotels, restaurants, they are down by minus 60% roughly. So that overall telcos performed quite well. If we look in the details in what telco operators played back in their annual reports, the key challenges, specifically on the revenue side, was on the one hand, roaming losses. Equipment sales, which has partially recovered end of the year when the shops reopened. But during some periods of the year, specifically when we had the strict COVID lockdowns in Europe, equipment sales were, of course, difficult to maintain, only via digital channels, not necessarily in the shops. We also saw ad business and TV revenues as a key challenge that was mentioned in your annual reports, and partially business service. I think that's a bit of a trade-off, because business service on the one hand were suffering. On the other hand, some of you, the telco operators in Europe, invented new business models, new business services, for example, video conferencing, etc., that you were successfully bringing to the market to your clients and also monetizing additional revenues. What we've also seen on the other hand, where the stores closed, is that was comparably low. And if you look at the right-hand side, we marked in green, where we had the strict COVID lockdowns in Europe in Q2, Q3, and Q4 2020, where the churn rate was lower than the average. This only affects the mobile churn that we looked here, but it gives an idea on how stable the relationship with the customer was during that time. That was partially some of the challenges US telcos were facing during this specific time of business. What we also saw was an uplift in traffic, network traffic. And we have seen this over years. Wim also mentioned this rollout of new networks. We saw all the investments over time. The key question is, can telcos benefit from the increase of traffic and new business models based on increasing traffic? And we can see an increase from 2018, 2020 by plus 30%. While the revenue on the telco side on average is quite stable, I would say, and not really moving into one or the other direction. At the same time, we can see the giants like the Netflix, Amazon, the streaming models increasing their revenues. Some are also suffering, for example, Sky on a global scale here, but others are benefiting from new customers, new business models, new revenues that at the same time drive the global data traffic as such. And here, one of the key questions is definitely how can telcos also benefit from the demand for new services?
See that there is a connection issue with Tom.
And we had a poll which asked, what are the top priorities within the group of the participants of the virtual gathering? On the left-hand side, you can see the responses. And what we saw last year, and also from the discussions with you within the working groups, within the virtual gathering, was that accelerating the company's digital transformation was on top of your mind. And therefore, this year's deep dive was related to digital maturity within the ETIS members group. What we used for that is what we call the Digital Acceleration Index. This is a BCG database worldwide across different industry, along 3 or 4 dimensions. On the one hand, outcomes, technology enablers, but also human enablers. So we look at it as a bionic company, and all of those 3 supporting strategy and purpose. And the DAI measures current and aspirational maturity of digital. We can compare scores across industries, but we can also within the industry compare. And we conducted this benchmark among you, the ETIS members, and we will also circulate individual results starting from next week for all those who participated. This is just a snapshot, a short summary of what we found out, but we will give you the opportunity to really compare against other benchmark participants. Where do we stand within the industry, but also how do we compare to other industries?
I think Tom's connection is again.
Yes, I see. It's a bit.
Can you see me?
Yes, now it's
Yes,
back.
now you're back. You were gone for.
Yeah. I just had a message that the bandwidth was low, but I hope that it works better now.
We noticed.
Good. As an overall result, as mentioned, the first comparison would be against other industries. And what we measure is digital maturity. The assessment was a self-assessment that some of you conducted and played back along roughly 60 questions. Where do we stand in digital maturity? And then summarizing, bringing this together, we identified maturity levels for each of the participants. And then we can group it into maturity levels starter. So these are operators, companies that lack a digital vision, just started setting up some digital initiatives. Literate, performer, and leader. And from the left to the right, we have higher digital maturity. And what you can see on this picture is the cross. This is where the TBIT participants stand today in the digital maturity. And you can see the gray cross on the right, which is on the performer level, which is the ambition you as the TBIT participants want to achieve, you want to reach. Having said this, we also compared against other industries. And first we thought, what could be the right industry to compare against? And what we chose is industries that have some similar aspects as you. We have the power and utilities industry, which has to maintain and manage large networks, large infrastructure. And you are definitely ahead of this industry. We also have the retail industry, which has shops, online channels for sales activities, etc. And you're also ahead of these digital maturity in the industry. Then we compared the telecom industry worldwide, which is based on our BCG benchmark database, where we have also conducted similar exercises outside of Europe with international telco operators. Then we also looked into media and entertainment industry, which is a competitor, at least in some parts of the value chain, and the software and IT services industries. And what we found out is that you might be able to learn most from media and entertainment industry, but also software and IT services industry in order to increase digital maturity here. On the lower part of the slide, you can see the variety, the range of maturity scores that we saw for the TBIT participants. And let's say the core message here is you can also learn from each other. We have some participants in the set that are already on the performer level. We have others that are more on the starter literate level, so that engaging in discussions among you, the ETIS members, would be helpful for all to benefit from a joint improvement of the digital maturity and reaching the ambition that you can see on the right-hand side. If we break it down a bit further into the different dimensions, we can see specifically one area where the ETIS participants, the TBIT participants, lag a bit behind the other industry, which is purpose and strategy. Sometimes it feels like in the telco industry, among the participants here, the purpose and strategy of the digital transformation either is missing partially or not fully transported and communicated to those who participated in our benchmark here. We can see other areas where the participants, are quite in the middle among the other industries here. New office services and business models is another dimension where there is room for improvement, where compared to other industries, you as the participants are lagging a bit behind. And we have also one dimension where you're almost leading the pack, which is around dynamic platform organization as the human enablers. Here, only software and IT services industry is more mature at the moment, while all the other industries are lagging behind in this digital maturity index. If we look at the individual dimensions, and by the way, we will share the whole presentation, the full report as an executive report, and you will see the link at the end so that you can dig deeper into individual numbers, and participants will also receive the individual assessments. We have here the summary of what we can see in individual dimensions. And what we can see is that the digital maturity is already quite high in customer services. This seems to have been the focus areas for the last couple of years. Customer journeys have been improved. The heightened customer expectations were supported so that they are met more and more. And you already looked into cybersecurity very deeply, as well as building new business and virtual teaming. These are the activities where these are the sectors where the digital maturity is already quite high. Others are a bit behind, and perhaps just to mention some of those specifically when it comes to leveraging data to driving business or sales, there is still room for improvement. For example, if we look at digitally driven pricing, the maturity is lagging behind. There is much more flexibility, digital enablement in other industries, while here we can see still some stable model not fully leveraging data. As mentioned, you will have the full set of information in the publication so that you can in-depth look into the details. Moving on, perhaps, and as we are reaching also the time limit in a bit, what we deducted from the assessment among the TBIT participants is 7 best practices that can boost the digital maturity. On the one hand, we have seen that digital transformations need to be treated as business transformations, not technically as pure IT transformations. We have seen some operators and also some of our BCG clients which were struggling as long as a digital transformation is seen as an IT program, IT improvement program. This really needs to come with a purpose, with a strategy from the top as a business transformation to fully leverage the potential of a digital transformation. But we have also seen that it's important to accelerate the digitalization of the core. And here we are talking not only about support functions, but also supply chain, new procurement models, digital procurement models, with a focus on the customer journey always as the basis and the starting point. This has to be supported and encouraged from the top. It's a CEO-driven transformation, not a technology optimization. And it is also important to embark on new business ventures and expanding into digital ecosystems. What we have also seen is that it's important to communicate. I will come back to this later on the slide when we talk about digital skills, talent, and maintaining the whole workforce to support the digital transformation. What we've also seen in the survey and also with the experience beyond the survey is leveraging the power of data and technology is important. This can support pricing models. This can support customer journeys, etc. What is important is not to drive this as a big bang transformation, but select prioritized use cases and building such a digital data platform incrementally. This will reduce the risk and will bring benefits early on, which of course will support these kind of digital transformation. In this context, also important, AI, machine learning, RPA. Wim, you already mentioned this. Again, here, very important to drive this by value-proven use cases, accelerating those, and really make it tangible for the organization. When we move on to the human aspects of recommendations, adopting Agile at scale is important. We talked about this topic, I think, in the last in-person gathering in Vienna, I think, Wim. It's still because this is really the driver for becoming responsive, fast, agile in delivering digital use cases, digital transformation, and by this also increasing the digital maturity. And then the last point, something to highlight, building organizational-wide digital skills is challenging, and we have heard from a lot of telco operators and benchmark participants that becoming onto the top talents' minds coming from university is a challenge. But what here often helps is really commitment to training, professional development, not only offering jobs, but offering a career development path. That's important to get these digital skills required to increase the digital maturity on board. That's a bit what we, let's say, deducted from the results from the benchmarking. What is clearly important is to leverage the ETIS community to connect and learn. You have seen the wide range of digital maturity among the participants. Engaging here, deducting individual learnings and detailing a digital transformation plan can start very well in the ETIS community by engaging, by sharing experience, sharing use cases where possible. And then as a last step to adapt and refine the course of action, we have seen adjustments to the digital transformation during the Corona pandemic. That was more driven by the new circumstances. Now it's also revisiting, refining the digital transformation that we see also in the investment patterns. Having said that, I will do my short presentation here with a link to the report that's available now for you to download and to look into more details of the results.
Okay, thank you, Tom. It's clear that the telecom sector is doing well. There is still a way to go, and it's also good advice that we can learn from one another. And we have several working groups touching upon the digital transformation of the different internal activities of the operators. So we will definitely take your advice and continue to share these experiences. The digital transformation is not only on the agenda of telcos. Basically, all industries, all verticals are looking at their own digital transformation. And it's also good that telcos can play a role in the digital transformation of these verticals. And so therefore, I'm happy to introduce Martin Greene from Centernode, who will explain which opportunities telcos can grab and how they can be successful in it. Martin, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Wim, and fascinating set of presentations already this morning, and what Tom was talking about there is really close to my heart as well. I titled this presentation all about transforming the telco, and there's so many different aspects to the transformation of the telco, and Tom touched on many of them. It's fascinating to see the progress. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Martin Greene, and my background is in the telecoms industry for many years. I was the president and CEO of the TM Forum, the global management standards body or industry association of our industry. I've also worked in telcos, I've worked in suppliers, and currently I advise a lot of different companies in their digital transformation strategy. And my most recent book is a book called Transforming the Telco, which touches on an awful lot of the topics that Tom mentioned in that. But I'm not going to delve into digital transformation in this presentation. I'm going to talk about one aspect of it, which is really about some of the things that are driving the need to start developing a whole new set of connectivity and beyond connectivity offerings. Just very briefly touch on some of the financial challenges of the industry. Tom mentioned them in kind of a microcosm, maybe in the slides he shared. In a macrocosm, and I talk a lot to the investors in telcos and spend a lot of time with the various investment boards and sovereign wealth funds and so on. And from an investor's perspective, the telco industry has not done all that well during the pandemic or before it, and there's not a view that it's going to do incredibly well if it keeps going down its current path. On the right-hand side, there's a McKinsey analysis, but there's lots of analysis like this looking at the return on invested capital, the ratio of that to the actual cost of capital, the weighted cost of capital. And a decade ago, you were getting approximately about $6 for every dollar invested in terms of return. And now we're getting about $1 for every dollar invested. And that scares investors very significantly. And similarly, a lot of the profits and the margins of the I suppose the ICT industry in its broadest sense are being hoovered up by the various hyperscalers and what we used to call OTT players, and not really going back into the telcos. We're still holding up pretty well in EBITDA and so on. But if you look at average shareholder return, and this has been true for the last number of years, whether the chart I'm showing you there is just the average shareholder return during the pandemic. You see things like, some of the industries that particularly leveraged well out of that, semiconductor, media, broader technology industries, retail industry, all did very well. Telecoms is still one of the weakest shareholder returns for investors. And this is driving what I call the worst possible behavior of investors, which is this growth in dividend yield. So which growth in dividend yields means they're taking money out of any remaining profits that sit on the balance sheet at the end of the year are being given back to the investors so they can invest in the things that are giving better shareholder return rather than what we want to see, which is reinvestment in the telco industry. And we're seeing a similar but different challenge in, specifically related to 5G. In 5G, what we're seeing is this is a piece of work I did with Harvard Business School a couple of years back, where I was building out a bottom-up view of where the money would be. where the global revenue generated related to 5G would be by 2025. And I looked at it across different vertical industries, ranging from the manufacturing, the healthcare, the agriculture, automotive, and so on, as well as in the consumer world. And the story that comes out of that picture really is saying that there's a lot of money that's going to be enabled by 5G by 2025. And the estimate we came up with was around $4.7 trillion. And you'll have heard numbers similar to that from different pieces of analysis that have been done slightly differently. And of that 4.7 trillion, that breaks down to about 1.6 trillion related to connectivity and about 3.1 trillion related to other things, hardware, software, services, and so on. But then when I drill down further, of that 1.6 trillion related to connectivity, only about 480 billion of that is new. The rest of it has kind of been accounted for. It's either the progression of 2G, 3G, 4G, or it's connectivity revenue that's not really 5G related in the broadest sense. And so we worked out about $480 billion of that revenue is going to be new connectivity revenue, which is still a nice chunk of change. The problem is that the cost of rolling out 5G is quite significant, as everybody is finding. And even though it is more efficient and so on, there's virtualization options emerging, which should improve efficiency even more. We're still seeing, when we did a bottom-up build of the likely cost globally of rolling out 5G, and we built in the usual sort of multipliers and factored in potential cost savings that we're all achieving year on year, we still came up with an overall cost of operating and building out 5G networks by 2025 to be around $640 billion. So 480 billion of new connectivity revenue, 640 billion of cost. The books won't balance on that. And so the big key message is that if we try and run 5G the way we ran 4G, 3G, 2G, and just rely purely on traditional connectivity, a build it and they will come strategy, we're going to run into a major problem. And so a lot of the discussions I'm working with different telcos around the world is around a new era connectivity strategy. And that kind of has two parts to it. One part is we need to change the discussion around connectivity. Connectivity has been shifted into this commodity wallpaper type of scenario, where people don't value connectivity and the profits around, they expect to have it, but they don't price it based on the value it offers. And so we need to enhance that connectivity offering, and we need to go beyond connectivity. And when I talk about enhancing connectivity, it's evolved it from being a commodity to being a differentiated service. And beyond connectivity is what we all talk about in terms of how does a telco, if you go back to that chart about 5G, and you see there's a gap between traditional connectivity revenue and the cost of running 5G, you close that gap somewhat by maybe reducing the cost. You close it another chunk by enhancing the type of revenue you can get from connectivity, from traditional connectivity, by offering bells and whistles around it. And those are going to be things like 5G slices and so on. And then you go beyond connectivity into other verticals, and you offer solutions that generate revenue that are nothing to do directly with connectivity. And those are the types of services that I'll talk a bit about in this presentation. But the more you do this, the more you go beyond connectivity, it makes the telco better at building its own enhanced connectivity offering. And of course, the more you enhance connectivity, the more sophisticated it enables you to go beyond connectivity. So there is a synergy going on there between enhancing your connectivity offering while growing your beyond connectivity. And the third leg of this stool, and this is a conversation, I didn't build this in relation to this presentation, but I thought what Wim was talking about was really interesting. So I included this in here from a presentation I did with the board of a major telco a couple of weeks ago, where they wanted to talk about how all of this drives sustainability and what is the linkage between our investment in closing those revenue gaps and our sustainability agenda. And of course, enhancing connectivity is going to drive down some costs, and it's going to drive down consumptions within the telco. Going beyond connectivity is going to drive the digital transformation of other industries, which is going to drive a sustainability agenda. When we talk about going beyond connectivity, we all know the general areas. You know, people talk about manufacturing, healthcare, automotive, retail. Wim put up a very interesting survey on which are the most likely areas, and pretty much hands down in most parts of the world at the moment is manufacturing, followed probably by healthcare, but energy coming up reasonably fast as well. I did a survey last week on a TM Forum event, and energy came up quite high on that. So there's a range of B2C opportunities to go beyond connectivity. There's a range of B2B opportunities. Most of the energy in the world at the moment is around trying to really exploit the B2B ones, because that's where it's most obvious there's an opportunity. Having said that, how you pick which ones work best for you, which industries work best for you, you need to, it requires a detailed analysis of your own capabilities, as well as what the opportunities in the market, you know, the opportunities are in the market, but also what the timing of that, the adoption timing. There could be great opportunities, but after 5 or 10 years out, they may not meet your requirements. One of the areas that I wrote about in my last book, and I've been developing a lot with various telcos over the last number of years, is how to avoid wasting money in your investment in trying to go beyond connectivity. And I've got, I'm absolutely convinced that you need a repeatable methodology for assessing which services you go after. You can't copy another telco, which as an industry, we do like seeing what's, you know, what Vodafone is doing, let's do that. What Deutsche Telekom is doing, let's do that. You need to identify what is going to work for you. And I've kind of got a 4-step view on that with quite a complex methodology underneath that. One is really understanding the ecosystem, understanding the key roles in the service area that you are considering and the leading players in each of those roles. Next element is really understanding the market size and doing the detailed analysis of what the opportunity is, because there are hundreds of use cases that you could possibly look at. If you're interested, and these slides are just around manufacturing, but if you're interested in manufacturing, there's hundreds of different use cases. So you need a detailed analysis of not just what the market, the business opportunity around manufacturing is, but very specifically, you're going to offer predictive maintenance in a particular type of manufacturing opportunity. And what is the real opportunity there? Are you going to offer it upstream or downstream in warehouses, after manufacturing, or in shipping before manufacturing? And then finally, you need to apply what I call control point analysis. This is a methodology that's been produced by a guy called Professor Marco Ianciti out of Harvard Business School. And control point analysis in trying to understand where are the real opportunities, what are the really important points to assess in order to identify which use cases are going to work for you. This is an example of how I've looked at this in the healthcare industry. And looking at a wide range, and we have several hundred use cases in digital health. And then we've built out a set of criteria. It's frightening to say that there's actually 27 criteria that we've developed that identify different aspects of either the benefits that a particular use case is going to deliver, or the types of capabilities that are going to be required, the partnerships that are required, a range of criteria around the market timing risk. In this case, it's the healthcare market timing risk, and similarly, and those are things like, you know, is regulation in place, and are there alternatives already there that are good enough for the next few years, and so on. And then the actual scale and value and the adjacencies. So what are you already doing that can be tweaked into offering an opportunity in that area? And from that, you end up with a view of all of your use cases on a bubble chart, which on the bottom axis is the market timing risk, and the higher it's better. So being up in the top right-hand corner is good. And on the vertical axis is the telco business fit around that particular opportunity. And doing that in across hundreds of use cases, it's a time-consuming exercise, but you have to remember you're going to be investing millions, if not tens or hundreds of millions, in trying to grow these areas. So you don't want to chase a dead opportunity. Similarly, I've gone through the same process in the manufacturing industry and looked at where the opportunities are. And there's no one answer for that I can give you to say go after predictive maintenance or go after, you know, asset tracking or whatever. The reality is, because the capability, the markets, it relates to what are the capabilities of your own company, what are the immediate demands in your own region, and then what is the opportunity size. And one of the things that I thought has been quite interesting is to look at the blending of existing and new competencies. And I look at, you know, for example, there's a set of opportunities that I've been observing telcos taking advantage of, where they're exploiting their existing competencies. So when we talk about moving into B2B in a broader sense, people often think, and I'm guilty of this as well, I talk about the idea of we need to move into B2B, we need to grow expertise in healthcare. But the reality is there's opportunities by just exploiting your own competency in network management and customer experience and the first three here, network management, customer experience, and energy, are three examples that three telcos have taken advantage of. Telia, I believe, may well be on the call, is a member of ETIS, but Telia is reselling their zero-touch knock offering into a number of different companies. So they built an internal competency. They don't have to think outside the box. They have to think in terms of a new business model for how to sell that. We see TELUS has acquired, they've built their own, TELUS in Canada, this is, they built a strong competency in customer experience, and then they started acquiring customer experience companies around the world so that they can offer high-end customer experience capabilities into a whole range of vertical industries. This is becoming a very big business for them. They claim to have over 50,000 people now employed in their TELUS international operations. Telstra is investing in energy reselling in Australia. And this is based on the fact that they've got smart home offerings, and now they realize maybe I can become an energy reseller, link it to my smart home offerings. So they're leveraging their existing competencies. And then, of course, people are moving into new competencies. And again, looking at the same companies like TELUS, has M&A is going to be hugely important if you're moving into these new areas. Digital health, TELUS has spent more than 3 billion Canadian dollars in growing a digital health business, and it's a big business now and quite a successful business, but that is not for the faint-hearted. Smart manufacturing, Telia has moved into smart manufacturing in a big way, but they've done a lot of M&A, no, not of the same scale as TELUS, but M&A is a big element of this. Similarly, China Telecom and industrial IoT, we've seen investments in smart agriculture. One of the other key areas is to understand ecosystem. Ecosystem is the buzzword of 2021. And we all talk about, we need to work about how better to work with ecosystems and so on. But I would advise everybody who is really trying to develop a competence in understanding ecosystems to first really understand what is an ecosystem, what isn't an ecosystem. And how do you want to engage with those ecosystems? There's a lot of very good work out there. Michael Jacobides from London Business School has produced a lot of really good academic work in trying to understand the difference between ecosystems. And then I worked with Michael on a project about a year ago to develop a framework for how to engage with an ecosystem. Is there a repeatable, I'm big into repeatable methodologies, but is there a repeatable methodology for how to engage with an ecosystem? And that is something that we've developed, and I'm happy to share that. And I've written about that a fair bit in blog postings as well. But understand how you want to, or which ecosystems are important to you, and then build a repeatable approach to how to engage in that ecosystem. I talk about new era connectivity, and I do think you need to think very carefully about reinventing basic connectivity as a differentiated service. And this is something I've seen DT talk about very recently. I've worked with a couple of other telcos who are very interested in this whole discussion. So rather than just viewing connectivity as it's what we've always done, taking a really critical look at it and identify new capabilities with new value-based pricing rather than cost-based pricing on your connectivity offering, and really try and go after an increased margin in the connectivity area. And it's going to be things like the ability to order connectivity in an elastic way, similar to how you order cloud, offering differentiated services around security, latency, network as a service, and so on. Applying things like, using deterministic networking to guarantee quality, dynamic pricing, and business models. And I think I just noticed on Tom's notes something about a lack of investment in dynamic pricing by telcos. And I think that could become a really important area. So you adopt a pricing model for connectivity similar to how Uber adopts a pricing model, or Airbnb, based on availability. And when I talk about different enhanced capabilities, there's lots of different enhanced capabilities out there. Network as a service, customized networks, high security or low latency or high bandwidth or high density type of network. Being able to produce things on demand and offer things on demand. Customer self-service, so that you don't have to get involved. You create APIs to allow and easy to use capabilities so the customers can offer the capabilities they need, and then a seamless integration between networks and cloud. And we've been doing a bit of analysis, and I don't stand over this too strongly, but I'll put it up here just to get your thought processes going, which is the requirements of different vertical industries for different types of enhanced connectivity capabilities. And the obvious ones of education, be very keen on demand, may not be overly interested in network as a service type offerings or customized networks, but automotive probably needs all of those. When you look at the different use cases and start mapping it to different network capabilities, you start building a picture of the types of capabilities you need to prioritize to make available. As I say, I don't view this as definitive. This is more of a work in progress, but I have shared it. Second last slide here, because we're running out of time, but platforms are going to become increasingly important. And Tom's note said the telcos are getting very good on delivering things around digital transformation around platforms. But I'm beginning to see, and I spend a lot of time talking to vertical industries, I'm beginning to see the likelihood that we're going to see industry-specific platforms emerging from a manufacturing point of view, from a healthcare, from an agriculture point of view. And the most likely way those are going to emerge is that the hyperscalers are going to create those platforms, and they're going to become the de facto platforms, that the Amazons, the Azures, and so on. But the telco has a role in wherever these platforms are going to be. By the way, the vertical industries they're very interested in them owning some portion of these platforms, that they don't just cede those platforms to the hyperscalers. But wherever the platforms are, the communication players are going to be sitting in there in a critical place. And telcos need to establish a secure value-added position in these platforms, rather than just being a commodity position within those platforms. I mentioned sustainability, and I think you guys probably know more about the general issues of sustainability than most people. And the position paper that Wim mentioned is really important in this area. But telcos have, they are a major contributor to global CO2 emissions. We're a major contributor to the amount of electronic waste that ends up in landfill. But similarly, we're doing a lot of things already, like the Green Digital Coalition, a lot of companies getting involved in that, about investing in green tech and developing tools. Of course, as I mentioned, driving vertical industries is very is very important because you're driving their digital transformation and helping them become more efficient. And this is something that a number of people are talking about. It's the BCG, again, not necessarily something that Tom has mentioned, but the BCG Sustainability Index that they've been developing for looking at sustainability in telco, I think is really sophisticated, and I really like it because it looks at 4 different aspects: commitment, that the measurable ways of looking at the commitment of the telco to sustainability, measuring the energy consumption in things like gigajoule per exabyte of IP data traffic for the different types of capabilities you're putting in place. Obviously looking at the circular economy and whether you're driving plastic and electronic waste, and then customer enablement. So that was a very rapid run through our topic, but as a summary, the transformation is happening in our industry, but financial imperatives are driving this, and those financial imperatives are quite scary. And we need to redefine connectivity and go beyond connectivity to make 5G a success. The 2B digital services innovation is very interesting, and there's lots of different industries that's looking attractive in, as I mentioned, but sustainability is becoming an increasingly important topic in every single conversation in this area. So I will stop there, Wim, and hand back to you.
Okay, thank you, Martin, for a very inspiring speech with a lot of advice, I would say, to become efficient in other verticals. We also got already some questions related to this, which we will take at the round table, because we're running a little bit over time. So first, I would like to give the floor to Marco Holsworth from Deutsche Telekom to give us a view on what happened during summertime in some of the European countries and how DT responded to this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wim, and thank you very much, Paul, for the kind invitation to this impressive lineup today. So thanks, Tom and Martin, also for your contribution to this. I try to give my very best to screw up not your agenda. So I run quickly through the slides. Questions afterwards in the panel discussion. I hope you enjoy. My topic today is the floodings and the heavy rains that occurred in Belgium and Germany in July. So my agenda covers what has been done there, what were the damages in our infrastructure from a Deutsche Telekom perspective, but also in the general infrastructure. Then what we did and what was our approach to solve the problems there. We built something like a zoning plan, we call it, but the name is not important. I will share with you afterwards some lessons learned from it. And if you haven't listened to me in that time, I will give you the key messages I want to transport to you, very summarized. So just listen to the last slide if you're not interested in the rest of the story. So perhaps you've heard of it. If not, this was quite a disaster for the western parts of Germany and also for Belgium. Only in Germany, I think 183 victims is the actual number, perhaps one or two above that, and $20 billion in damages in the infrastructure and overall. The most hit areas cover also the rural area where it's industry based, and also rural area in the North Eifel and in the Ahr Valley. Ahr Valley, you can see it on the right hand side. There are valleys that are very narrow, so the heavy rains had the chance to swallow the rivers there very much. As an example, the Ahr, this is a small river, 50 centimeters deep, and they had a wave coming through that valley that was 7 meters. So within 1 or 2 hours, from 50 centimeters to 7 meters. So complete, the villages I displayed on the left-hand side for you, complete damages or damages from 60 to 80% there. They lost nearly the whole infrastructure, electricity, communication, water, sewer, everything what you can imagine. So really dramatic situation, what happened there. So from an infrastructure perspective, and most of you are technology guys, this is even not better. So we had 250,000 without the mobile connection there, because all our connection lines were destroyed. The electricity was out of function, and our backbone. This was a very hard hit from our perspective. The backbone for the fixed line was completely destroyed. So our main switching stations were 2 or 3 meters underwater. So no chance for the technology guys of you that there's something left that still works. So 500,000 network interruption, a 250,000 network interruption, and 102,000 with the fixed lines. So problem I want to show you, this is Altenar. I have been in that small village. It's 800 or 900 inhabitants. It was quite picturesque. I have to pick my words very carefully. It was very picturesque because there were a lot of vineyards and small restaurants and all over there. I was with my wife there 2 years ago, because it's a it was a great landscape, and it was really nice to spend time there. Then the wave and the floodings came, and as you can see, the R is making circles there through the small village. And in the middle of our of this small village, our exchange station, our main hub for the valley, was there. So all the mobile antennas on the mountains were connected to this main exchange station, and as this was completely destroyed, you can see in the upper left side a picture of it. There was water in the basement. There was water in the technology in the first floor. This is a complete loss for us. Cables are lost, and also the bridges across the river, the arc crossing, were destroyed. So no electricity, no connection, everything destroyed. So it's quite hard when you make then a first analysis and assumption. Okay, what have we lost there in terms of infrastructure? For an example, in the R Valley, we have over 60 bridges destroyed. And the bridges were also used to connect both sides of the river and for the crossing of our infrastructure cables. So everything was lost there. Another point was the buildings where our technology is were also flooded, so everything lost there. Then you can see also the damages, 0.7, for example, at the customer's premise. When there was water in the basement, their connection boxes were completely destroyed, cables within the house destroyed, and also their CPEs, so their routers, were also destroyed. So complete disaster for the guys over there and complete disaster for us. What we did, we brought back our infrastructure case by case. I will guide you a little bit through that. You can see, for example, the number 4, we call it a safety container, because this is a complete container with network infrastructure within it. So with all the routers and switches and connection cables, so you can do everything with a kind of interim wiring to bring back the connections. So zoning plan, what we did when this happened. So all of the guys were pretty much surprised. Within 2 or 3 days, we had such a level of damage there. All the people were quite astonished and surprised of the impact of this catastrophe. So we built first of all a zoning plan. And our mindset to build that was not the technology or the infrastructure we have lost there, but taking care about the people that are there. So this was the priority number 1, take care about the people over there. So we started within 1 day. So this is what we call the zoning plan. We first of all started build a single point of truth so that we can coordinate all of our help efforts and measures. So first get the impact analysis, collect the data from the network, put everything to one data room, get the customer data on it, and make first measurements from our infrastructure. Where is still a ping of the router of the customer? Where do we have a signal? Or where do we have a signal from our mobile infrastructure, so that we get a first plan, okay, what is the impact? And the result of it was 250 people in mobile and 100,000 fixed lines were lost. So this was the first one. You can see it here, what happened to our infrastructure. For example, at 9A, right upper side, the picture, this was the bridge where our cables went over. And on the bottom of this picture, you can see the gray box that connects a whole area in the city, complete destruction. You can see on the left-hand side, this is Gerolstein, one of our major hubs in the Eifel region there. Water all over in the basement, technology completely lost. So we put everything of our infrastructure into 3 boxes with repair possible within 4 weeks, 3 months, and beyond 3 months, because there are a problem in rebuilding it, because they are in the most affected areas of the flood, and so the authorities would not allow to build up something there in the future, because they want to avoid it for future reconstruction efforts. So second part of it, we made from the technology perspective 5 different things. First, a temporary backbone wiring to get networks back as near as possible to the impacted people. Second, the destroyed bridges, I told you about them before, make an interim wiring through the rivers and bridges. That is something what caused a lot of work for us, because bridges were lost, then army came, built up interim bridges, we used them sometimes, then army get off, then authorities build midterm bridges, and they will also be reconstructed then to the final bridges. So we have to build up it 3 times to get everything in our network back to work. So on the left hand and the right upper side, you can see our great boxes. They distribute the signal to customers' home at the beginning of a street, for example. Some of them were swamped and with mud. So our field force got with the water hose to it and simply put water in it to get them clean again. Because when you put back electricity to them, they still work and work for the future. So quite cool approach of our field service guys. And on the left-hand side, the network containers as interim operations, I already told you. As we have lost some of our towers, and this is Altena again, where I showed you this map. There you can see the mountains on the side of the valley, but the signal was over there and there was no electricity and cables were lost. So we built up interim mobile coverage down in the valley so that the people that have really lost everything there, they lost families, they lost their homes, they lost their cars, they even lost their ID cards, everything. You can't tell if the people are the people they are in front of you, so that they have a chance of connecting to the world and to their families and to authorities and everything. So they lost everything, to be quite honest. So then I come to my third part, the urgent customer help. We started that within, I think, 1 or 2 days, because we have to sort ourselves. What can we do? How do we get the supply for everything? And we made the plan how we distribute it to the most affected people in the area. As you can see, this is a picture from the Saturday morning after the catastrophe. So the peak has been on Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Friday we took for the organization of everything. And on Saturday morning, we started with some telecom shuttles we are using here for shuttling executives and all that stuff. We grabbed them. We organized smartphones, SIM cards, power banks, because the people don't have the opportunity to recharge their cell phones, packed everything to that, gave our people. So a lot of people helped us from our employees. Hey, I want to help you. I want the people there. I will be there. So there was a great enthusiasm to help the people and a great amount of power. So we packed everything into the cars and went directly to the most affected area. On the right-hand side, you can see some of our, I call it the marketing approach or the propaganda around that, because you have the you have to distribute the message. We are there for you and we want to help you. So we made a lot of communication around that so that we reach the people with our help. So then we built up, because 3 of our shops have been completely destroyed. So we built up interim shops. As you can see on the left-hand side, this is not a fake picture, something like that. People came to us. We had electricity there. They got a smartphone from us. They got a SIM card, a power bank, whatever, or just spend time there to tell their story, what happened to them during the night, and just to have a coffee and just to rest a little bit. As you can see on the right-hand side, we also built up in Karnborn. This is a village near to Altena, the most hit area, a central function point where all the authorities, the police, the fire departments could go, and we also equipped them there. So, and what we did for the mass was we put out unlimited data for all the guys that are in the region there. So 317,000 SMS went out to get additional data volume. And after 30 days, we extended that by additional 2 months because the people really needed it. So we decided, okay, we bring everything out to them. It helps the most. As you can see, a hard time here. We had the backpacks teams because the people can't reach us. So we said, okay, we reach them. On the lower right-hand side, there were no streets because streets were destroyed. So people were kind with trucks and pickups to take us down the valley where we can help. So we had in our backpacks the SIM cards, the mobile phones, and everything. So really nice transfer, and these are the kind things you experience in such a bad situation. So at the end, what we did is set up a team. It doesn't matter what team, but involve everybody. So the call centers, the field service, the communications department, the network team, retail shop, emergency response team, everything. And so we built up a comprehensive set of measures. And one of the first measures was we stopped the invoicing. Nobody that lost the family or the house or the car or whatever ever would like to have an invoice of your telco provider. This is shit, so we stopped that immediately. And also the Mansperre, so invoicing reminders and all that stuff. People, it's not important for there, so stop it. Second point, unlimited data option. We told you that. We made outbound calls to check if our customers are available and to ask if we could be of help for them. We had special numbers for them to reach us. We had the on-site trucks and service points. I told you about that. And also online, we built up a kind of micro site where the people could type in their address and what is the time of reconstruction for their fixed line. So this helped a lot and got a lot of traffic. As you can see, 2,500 visits per day, quite a tremendous interest of the guys. And also we are checking lines when they are back from time to time, if there's traffic on it or if there's a damage again in the system. Because when fire departments or police builds up something there, infrastructure is sometimes destroyed. So the fast help measures, I give you just a quick one in 1 minute. Mobile, I told you 250 people were disconnected. So within simply a week, for you to remind, we had 100% of the mobile network recovered. Interim lines through the forest, the valleys, the mountains, everything what you can imagine, even with the help of the armies and tanks and all that stuff you needed in that area. So this was a great effort, and I'm a service guy, but a great chapeau and thank you to our guys from the technical department. They did an awesome job there. So this is number one. Number two, to bring back the fixed lines, we invented something, and for the guys, you don't know German, just remember one German word. It is called Straßenzugbearbeitung. This is not a simple word. Wim, I see your face, yes. Straßenzugbearbeitung means we care street by street about the house connection of our customers. So when we come from the infrastructure node on the left-hand side, our main network exchange, not just simply repair technology, and then not simply go to the large gray box. We drove to some streets with 3 or 4 cars with field service technicians, opened the doors, and house by house, as you can, a little bit like war, house by house, they went inside, installed the cables back, the customer premise equipment and all that stuff, and brought back the home network. So I like it, very impressive, very hands-on to help the people there. So just remember Straßenzugbearbeitung, quite an impressive German word. So as you can see here, we visited now after 3 months approximately over 60,000 customers at their home. And so current status as of today, this morning, 93% of the fixed lines are recovered after 3 months. So reimagine the vast destruction and damages, and then 96% after 3 months are back. So quite impressive by our colleagues. The people we can't help with our within a short time frame, within 4 weeks or 3 months, something like that, we built a product within 2 or 3 weeks. It is called the Router Speedport Pro. This router has been there already, and it's possible to use it by fixed line and also via LTE connection or over-the-air mobile connection. So people can keep that, and as soon as their fixed line connection is back, they simply use the fixed line, and in the meantime, they have the full functionality of their triple or double play back over the air, over mobile. So I really liked it. One of the fastest product inventions and product go-to-markets ever in our history. So quite a good job of our marketing and product management guys. I really like that. Another point, we also did some fundraising and pushed a donation gala or Saturday night show. This was one of our most important private TV channels, Sat.1, it is called Sat.1. They had a donation gala. We powered that with our people and network. So 2,000 volunteers of Deutsche Telekom collected donations. So it was about 33 million, and we put another 1 million to it. And the communication piece, we made it real, or we thought about it very serious, because communication in that area, you have to be careful, because people lost everything. They won't like marketing shit, to be honest. They will hate you for that, and also the media. So be careful with it, but make everything very comprehensive in communication when you provide help, so that you are sure that you can reach everybody. So at the end, and this is my last chapter, Wim, no worries, the recovery of fixed line network, because there's still a tremendous task to do for us after 3 months. We decided to build up the fixed line infrastructure, not on a copper basis, this would be nonsense, but on a fiber basis. So there will be 35,000 new fiber connections in the most hit areas. So even the people then, when they have been strongly hit, they get a faster internet afterwards. So a little benefit for that. And as you can see, a future-proof network of us is coming to the most hit areas, and they really like it. So we have to be fast now in construction and help them and all the stuff. So as promised, lessons learned. I keep it very simple and short. Every effort we have paid back into that pays back by the people. So they're tremendously thankful for all our efforts and that we are there. And we made them a promise. We stay until everything is back and until you need us. So this was very, very welcome by the people. When you do things like putting out smartphones or SIM cards, don't ask for permissions. I have been nearly to jail, to telecom jail, when we put out SIM cards without checking ID, because people are only wearing their boxer shorts and their t-shirt. They did not have an ID card back. They even have no bank card, nothing, no card. So you can't ask them for an ID if they have lost their family and all their ID cards. So just give them the SIM card. And also the authorities helped us there because they said 3 months. You're not controlled on that, and that was much appreciated and great help. And at the end of all, this is not about technology or the infrastructure, it's about the people. And on the right-hand side, you can see Alex, he's from my team. He's working 3 months with the people there, and with his backpack and smartphones and everything, he's out and out and out. And his statement really touched me. He said, I've never done such a fulfilling job within my professional career. And this is much appreciated. And that's what I feel as well. So if you remember nothing else, this is a story. It's from life with great destruction and great or massive casualties. But it is possible to help there with not only caring about technology, caring about the people. And we are now at 100% mobile network back and 93% of the infrastructure. And we will stay there until everybody is connected again and again and again. So I hope you like it. If you would like to connect afterwards, I've put your barcode there to connect me. Simply text mail and then it's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Marco. That was really a passionate and emotional, a human speech. So thanks a lot for that. And I see that people stay in the call as well. So even if we go over time, I think if you talk about apocalypse, you don't have to always be the best timekeeper. I think then time is less relevant. So congratulations with what you did. We will also within ETIS continue this also at the request of KPN and Proximus, by the way, who had similar issues. But like I've said, we had also forest fires bringing infrastructure down. So we're definitely keen on sharing information on this so that we can be better prepared next time. We hope there will be no next time, but better safe than sorry. So I do realize also that perhaps I can take control over the screen again, but we are already over time and some people have left already. So I'm not sure we want to have the panel discussion. And I think it's better to conclude. Please send us your questions. We will come back to you via mail. As mentioned, you will also get the slides. So we'll skip this one. Please have a look at the 17 working groups and 3 other ones we are looking at to set up. So I've mentioned disaster recovery task force, which we will set up, also a content task force and an enterprise architecture task force. Have a look at our website or at the slides. Hopefully we will meet in Rome, and we pray that we will meet physically. Everybody is, I would say, tired of webinars, so save the date already, 2nd and 3rd of June. If you're not an ETIS member, check our website or contact me directly. I would like to thank the speakers, Paul, Martin, Tom, Marco, for being here and giving the engaging insight and giving some food for thought for all of us. I also want to thank Andrea and Michelle for helping me to set this up. I hope you liked it. Please give us your view on what you liked and disliked about the session when you leave the WebEx call. And I wish all of you a nice day. I hope to see you in future webinars and in Rome next time. Take care. Stay safe also. COVID is not gone yet. And see all of you virtually and even better physically. And after the virtual food for thought, I think for most of us, it's also time for real food now. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.